What up, Unstoppables? We have a great episode today, but real quick, we want to invite you to make the most important investment of your life. It's not a secret. There's no like smoke and mirrors. I'm not even trying to pull a fast one on you. I'm going to be pretty straightforward. The best investment you can make in your life is in yourself. And the best way to invest in yourself is by investing in your network, putting time and energy, surrounding yourself with the best. You are the average of those you surround yourself with. In that Restaurant Unstoppable network, I made it easy. Over the past 12 years and 1,200 plus episodes, I've been researching and talking to people and trying to figure out how do you become successful in the restaurant industry. And I've curated a network of tools, services, technologies, and individuals, experts that I would go to tomorrow if I'm opening a restaurant. And I'm bringing you to that network with live events, whether it be a workshop, a mentoring session, a power hour, or access to me twice a month where I just listen and steer you in the right direction, all happening at Restaurant Unstoppable Network. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/live. You also get this amazing access to all the recordings, RU Network podcast, which includes bonus ad-free and early release content. It also gives you access to our Unstoppable bot. It is a custom AI agent that is fed with 1,200 plus transcripts, over 2,400 hours of transcripts plus bonus content, all cross-referenced with our database. This is a powerful AI tool that you also get access to as well. What are you waiting for? Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/live and we'll see you there. This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest co-founders of Service Physics, Brian Reece and Steve Crowley. My men, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Hell yeah.
Always.
Dude, I'm stoked to be here, my guys. So you are here because episode 1151, Jason Sabos. I knew I was going to screw up the name, Jason. I'm sorry. I don't know why I struggle. Sobosinski. Did I say it correctly? I think that's the one, right? Haven Hot Chicken. Again, episode 1151. He had amazing things to say about you guys. And I'm here just to follow up. I really just want to go deeper to learn more. He said that, that you guys really helped them advance and where they were with trying to franchise their operation and scale and find efficiencies. So I can't wait to dive into exactly what it is you guys do. But before we dive into who you are and how you got to where you are today and the wealth of knowledge you collectively have, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Well, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the mission of Service Physics, and our mantra there is to make service work better for people. And so we find if we keep folks on the team and keep ourselves focused on making service work better for people, that always leads us in the right direction. It's that human-centered approach to problem solving.
Okay. Make service work better for people. And do you have anything to add to that, Steve?
I'd just like to call out the sort of double meaning there. We're making service work better for people. So the customer service should just be great for them. But also the work itself that the people who serve customers day in and day out do every day could just be more simple and repeatable. And instead, most of what happens in our industry is people going to work and grinding it out, spending the peak periods in the weeds, engaging in a lot of friction and struggle. So when you remove waste from the work, we can achieve that mission for customers, for employees, and then it just trickles down to the bottom line.
Yeah, go deeper into what making it work, like making service work better for people. I mean, what does that look like? How does service improve for people?
Well, I'll answer the same question that Brian just answered with my sort of mantra, which I think touches upon that, which is motion is not equal to work.
Right.
So
what is the definition of work?
Yeah. So
and I'm asking you this because I know your background and I'm sure you can answer it.
Yeah. Sort of underpinning of lean, which is the suite of tools and techniques and really mindset that Service Physics is based upon, defines work as activity that creates value for customers and waste as anything that does not. So if you were to visualize that like on a pie chart, there's some small sliver of activity that creates value for the customer.
Yeah.
And then there's everything else.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity is gigantic.
So I think the formula for work is like force times distance over time or something like that. Is that what it is?
Something like that. Yeah. Actually, the you're not the first person to.
And it's measured in joules or something like that, I think.
You're not the first person to bring that up. And one of the, and maybe we can tell the story in a little bit about how service physics became named service physics, but we do love to think about things in terms of how things interact with the physical environment, be it equipment, people, inventory moving through, and using a formulaic approach to just instead of route our problem solving through our opinions, build it from a place of facts and data, and a uniform problem solving methodology that can be used by anybody in a restaurant company from the front line up to the boardroom.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting too, that just this idea of getting systems or service to work for people. I'm trying not to go too deep into a rabbit hole straight out of the gates, right? But like, we are, at the end of the day, we are people. And I think the world is becoming more and more dependent on systems and processes to keep things in order as you go forward. And that's a necessity. But at the same time, like, people in nature are chaotic, so it's a very yin and yang thing where people are, I think we like to put things in order, but at the same time we thrive in chaos. And sometimes but we also thrive in order, right? It's a yes and kind of thing. So like, how do you get service or systems to not necessarily go against the grain of human nature, but to go with the grain of human nature? Is that the kind of stuff you guys get into?
Yeah. And let's go right down this philosophical rabbit hole. Might as well. This is where we spend most of our days.
And wait, before you go down that hole, work equals force times distance. I was right. And times COS 0, whatever. I was kind of surprised I pulled that from my aviation days. Anyway, I wanted to pat myself in the back. Philosophy, go for it.
Yeah, so we like to, nobody wakes up every day and thinks about how they can go to work and struggle, how they can go to work and move around and run out of things. I believe that people wake up every day and just want to show up and shine. We talk a lot about something we call the story of work. And so like any story, it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. And the 3 phases of those stories can be reflected with questions. So start at the beginning of the story. Why do people wake up every day and choose to spend their time, their most precious commodity? Because, no matter how much wealth you ever acquire, you can't buy more of your time back. It's gone is gone. But you give that time to an organization to do something. So everybody has a why. That story concludes with what the customer gets, what the customer wants, right? And so we have a pretty good beginning and we have a pretty good end. And when people ask us like, hey, what do you do? We're really good at describing the why we do it and the what the customer gets. The entire middle of that story is the question of how work gets done. How do we bridge why we got up in the morning to what the customer gets? And we gloss over that and don't pay it the attention it deserves. And so the practice of service physics is really understanding that. How do things go down? We put a lot of emphasis on getting people out of their offices and boardrooms and back rooms and onto the front line to watch people doing their work, and then to get the people who are doing the work out of their work to watch other people do that work. Because that's where you really start to see these sort of inefficiencies that we've just accepted as a part of what happens because motion looks like work.
Right.
But it's not.
Exactly. And with the world we live in today, with all the data touch points, you can really get super granular about what if you put the systems in place to collect that data, it just tells you so much about where the opportunity is.
Absolutely. And we're excited about the future that exists with cameras and artificial intelligence giving us some of these leading indicators. But today, most of the data we can get from restaurant systems are lagging.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna when we get to the part of the conversation of where are we today in terms of after we share your backstory. I want to pull back where you what gets you guys excited with this technology. I'm really interested in getting into that. Before we move on, did you want to add anything to that, Brian?
Man, no, I think, just back to that mantra, making service work better for people. If we keep the people at the center of the activity of the problem solving, we can really connect, just like Steve was saying, why people show up to work every day with the value the customer's getting. And we know from our experience that when people are working in direct service of value to other people, that's the most fulfilling thing that they can be doing with their time.
Yeah. It's really, at the end of the day, I think that's what it means to be human. I think if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, beyond shelter and security, feeling secure, we need to be seen. And the way we are seen is by being of value to other people, serving other people. And I think it's such a part of our DNA, our tribal DNA, to add value to our tribe, to be appreciated and seen. Because if we weren't valued and seen, they'd get rid of the dead weight and you'd be on your own in the wild, and we don't do good on our own. So it's just so important to be seen, to see and be seen, and to try to serve and add value.
That's right. And we even would take it a step further and say, like, that's almost the whole entire point of a business,
right?
Is to create value for
company
people, right? Yeah.
Like literally it's in the word company. It's like your company is the company you keep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we take that mission to like its biggest possible vision, it's really just making work better for people and, in service of other people. And so, I've had so many jobs in my career that were just terrible bosses, terrible working conditions. Nobody was thinking about the work that I was being asked to do from how can we make this easier? How can we make it more joyful so that it's more directly connected to the value we want to create for the customer? And so that's the sort of perspective we bring with Service Physics, is like really looking at what is that messy middle of the work story, and how can we make it easier, more joyful, so that we free folks up from figuring out how to replenish their inventory, how to spread the mayonnaise on the sandwich, and focus more on how can I create value for the customer through human interaction, through higher quality product, whatever that is.
Awesome.
And we're not reinventing a knowledge base here. So manufacturing has been perfecting better ways of making stuff for more than a century.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
Make things
right?
better. Yeah.
But the leaps in technology around making work better in manufacturing has spread to many industry verticals, but not the restaurant industry.
Yeah. I can't wait to get into this stuff. Before we get into this, like we really pull it back, I want to help the listeners kind of better understand. I think it's coming out, reading between the lines, the work you do today, but just like snapshot, like what is Service Physics today? Like who are we talking to?
Yeah, I think many people would describe us as a consultancy, but as former Fortune 500 company employees, we've grown to despise the C word. There's another C word we like, which is coaching, which is a part of what we do, but it doesn't encompass all of what we do. I would describe our practice as a combination of lean thinking and manufacturing methodology, systems engineering, and then like human-centered design, really understanding value from the perspective of the customer, and then also the people who are engaging in that value creating work.
Say that one more time. Lean systems?
Yeah, lean systems, systems engineering, and human-centered design.
Okay.
You put all those things together, and we've assembled a team of the world's best problem solvers.
Got it. How many clients are you working with today?
At any given time, it's probably 3 to 4.
Yeah, I think we've been as busy as 6 or 7, but we really start to max out our capacity at that point. We're in the process of growing, but the world's best problem solvers don't grow on trees.
Yeah, and some of the names you've worked with, obviously Haven Hot Chicken. I think I saw Krispy Kreme as one of your clients. Starbucks is one of your clients, or are those your past employers? Yeah,
Starbucks is a past employer. I just kind of go down the list of restaurant folks. We've been working with Panda Express for a number of years. We continue to engage with Vail Resorts during the seasons that makes sense to do with them. Pete's Coffee and Tea. We supported Mod Pizza a couple of years ago.
Past guest in the show.
Yeah. So, we, since the inception of our company a little over 5 years ago, we started working with small regional companies, but very quickly started getting pulled on from these larger companies. It's been a challenge to our growth. So for the entrepreneurs listening on your in your audience, I think that's one of the things to consider is like size of client relative to the maturity of your organization. And that's been a constant, opposing tension for us as we've grown. Yeah.
So traditionally you worked with larger organizations, but you're trying to get more into that, like 4 to 10 to 20 unit operator range?
I think we recognize that the larger, so we're interested in industry transformation. That's, the purpose of our mission. We're not going to be satisfied until we accomplish that. But also, Brian and I are not at the beginning of our career, so we're running out of time.
Right.
I worked with a coach years ago who said that most problems boil down to a cycle time demand rate problem. How much time do you have and how long is it going to take?
Right.
So we know that, working with these large companies is great because they have, tens of thousands, if not, 100,000 employees that are early in their career, and they'll go on to other companies and bring this thinking with them. However, it's a giant industry, and more than 90% of these small and medium-sized businesses. And it's actually where we started and had a lot of fun is with companies like Haven Hot Chicken. We started pre-Restaurant One. They were still doing kitchen pop-ups and asked for some support. And so we supported them in their early pop-ups.
And it was Ekin that you guys had in the relationship, right? Because he was also at AB Dev, right?
Yeah. So
Anheuser-Busch.
yeah.
And Bevan, is that what it is? Anheuser-Busch, Bevan, or whatever.
AB InBev, Budweiser, the parent behind Budweiser. So I'll just maybe do a quick little storytelling around who we are and how we got here.
Yeah, please. So like that's kind of what I want to go to next. So get into that.
Yeah. So it's probably a story you've heard before. Have you heard the one about a barista and a nuclear engineer walk into a bar?
Yeah.
Okay. So
only once, but it was only because I did a little research before getting here.
So Brian and I met at Starbucks Coffee Company more than 10 years ago. I actually started working there as a barista in the 90s as a stop along the way while I was finishing my hospitality program at Boston University, which is where I was born and raised. I worked through the field hierarchy for about a decade before moving into the corporate headquarters into an operations strategy position, which is where I met Brian, who had joined from the Department of Defense as a nuclear engineer, which he, jokes around. It's all just hot water, whether it's nuclear submarines or making coffee. But during that time, the great financial crisis, Starbucks was in a lot of trouble. The stock price had bottomed out, closing stores. There was recognition that more than half of the drinks that went across the counter were not achieving our own quality standards. And so with a bleak economic outlook, we looked across industry to say, like, who else has solved problems like this before? And through some really clever networking, there was a strategy executive who had been exposed to lean manufacturing as a concept in a consulting role, and said, I think there's something to that for us to learn. And so we partnered with ex-Toyota coaches to teach us about the work of brewing coffee and making coffee and serving customers that we had been doing sort of subconsciously for 30 years. And they brought that all to consciousness. They submerged us in that, like, how work happens. And we went to work on a long journey of redesigning all the store processes, including management processes. And all said and done, that took about 10 years for the Starbucks transformation to.
And this is
transpire.
like 2010?
It was like 2007 is
2007
is when the signals really began. 2008 is when it got really, really heavy. And that.
How many hundreds of stores does Starbucks, if not thousands of stores, does Starbucks have by 2007?
In 2007, we were probably 8,000 or so.
Which just goes to show that the growth never stops.
That's right.
When I'm talking about growth, I'm not talking about number of units. I'm talking about efficiency, like the internal, like the growth of like doing things better, more efficiently.
Well, if you think about the Starbucks journey, when I joined in the 90s, the mantra was 2,000 stores by 2000. So it's probably inconceivable for most of the listeners to imagine a world that only has 2,000 Starbucks, where they're not across the street from each other. But right. After that point, there was a format called Core B, which was designed to be able to slap into any rectangle space you could find on the planet. And so, at that time, you'll remember Frappuccino had just been introduced, and the margin on ice turns out is really, really good. So Starbucks had a lot of cash. And so what are you going to do with all this cash? Well, let's take real estate and start slapping these Core Bs in. And so we went on this tremendous arc of growth from 2000 to 2007. And all was well and good. And then the bottom dropped out of the economy and folks didn't have the disposable income to spend at Starbucks. And so Starbucks had quality problems, labor productivity problems, profitability problems. The center of the P&L was a mess. And it wasn't something that could be solved locally across, now 8,000 stores. It needed to be solved programmatically from HQ. And so we went to work on designing a service delivery system built on simple and repeatable work. And it's hard to imagine a world where Starbucks doesn't function like it does today. But I often say, if you went into Starbucks in 2005 during a peak period, you could have a clown go across the back line on a unicycle juggling fire and knives, and you wouldn't have noticed because there was so much motion and chaos back there, and it was just accepted. And so fast forward, post transformation, you've got a stable standard service delivery system, and no matter how busy they get, they're not moving around a lot. They're not stressed out and yelling at each other.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Brian?
No, I think that's the foundation of the service physics practice. And the rest of the story is how service physics came to be as a company, but really that's the story of the work and the inspiration for how we approach everything today.
Got it. Swing that mic to your right just a little bit for me.
This guy.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, so you guys met, at Starbucks. I mean, looking at your backgrounds, Brian. So basically, 03, you were in the world of engineering. You're an intern for Chromalloy. You spent a little bit of time with IBM as a supply chain engineer, co-op. You went to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, where you were the program manager and nuclear engineer. That's around the time you crossed paths with Steve.
Yeah, that's right. So have an industrial engineering degree. So what do you do with an industrial engineering degree in this day and age, you know, when most manufacturing is overseas? So you can either go work at a car manufacturing plant or apparently go work for the Department of Defense.
Yeah, nuclear sub. Really good at those.
Yeah.
And then so you go from this world, and then 2012, you go to work for Starbucks. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had a nuclear engineer go to Starbucks for work.
Yeah.
That's kind of a crazy leap, man.
So I was working for the DoD and I couldn't really get behind the mission. You know, I would walk around the office every day and folks, the older guys just were like crossing the days off their calendar, waiting for retirement when they could actually start enjoying life. Right.
That's my fear.
Yeah. And so that's what I was saying earlier. Like I've just had these jobs where I just felt like what I was doing with my time was not contributing value to the world. And so I really wanted to do something else, but I had no idea what that something else was. And it took me a year and a half of really hard work, really just trying to say, like, where can I take my career from here? You know, you'll appreciate this, right? Like all the classes I took, all the like certifications I got, it was actually the people that I met that helped bridge the gap for me. And so I met Lynn Hepler. I call her my patron saint of Starbucks because she really took it upon herself. We were in a class together to like help me get to my next stage of my career. So I had no intent to go to Starbucks, but really lucked into a job there on Gary Lehman's team, who's a great mentor of ours now, doing EOS implementation.
Oh,
so we still work with him quite a bit.
Talk EOS.
Yeah,
I'm stoked.
That'll be a fun one. So anyway, it just, you know, I'm just mentioning these folks because these were the people who really helped me in my career journey to make that big shift. And I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own by any stretch. So these folks really put themselves out there. I have no idea why.
To this day, like when the normal path for like restaurateur, I think when people close their eyes, like how do people become a restaurateur? Like become a chef, and then like you like go to culinary school, go work for a successful chef, become the chef, open a restaurant, find a general manager. Like that's like the path you think of, right?
Yeah.
But you know, going to culinary school, I think the number one thing when that conversation comes up when I'm interviewing people, it's not about what you learn there. It's about the connections you make there, that the doors that opens to go get the job with that chef that will help you build a resume. So you can go to a bank and say, I work for Thomas Keller.
That's right.
6 months.
It's amazing.
Give me $1 million.
Yeah.
Like,
and so there's always this
crazy
like this, you know, everybody says you got to have a goal. What's your 5-year vision? Like, where do you want to be in your career? And I actually, frankly, never really had that. And so I was just sort of navigating where my passion took me and like choosing the doors as they opened. You know, I've had doors open that I chose not to go through. So, you know, to some extent, there was some like intention there, but getting into Starbucks is where I really just discovered this whole passion for creating value for customers. You know, I've worked in e-commerce, I've worked in the Department of Defense, and it's just really difficult because you can't see how the work that you're doing. You can't directly see the value.
You don't get
creates.
seen. You're not being seen. You're not seeing. Like, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. You can't see the smiles.
Exactly. And I think we forget what drives us. That back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, being seen and seeing and being seen. And when you remove the result of your work, that's why the restaurant industry is so satisfying. Is like you in that moment are getting approval or disapproval. You know, like that, like. It's so crucial to our like mental health.
Yeah. And then the opposite is true, right? When you see the struggle, you know, when you walk into an operation, you just see people yelling at each other and sweating and just struggling. And then you see how that plays out in the guest experience. And so, you know, we just see a world where service experiences can be so much better for people if we focus on making that work easier.
I love that. Restaurant owners, what if I told you there was a way to lower your prime cost by $1,000 and get paid $1,000 on top of that? If it sounds too good to be true, it's not. Restaurant Systems Pro is offering that deal right now to 10 of my lucky listeners. Listen closely. Join the Restaurant Systems Pro 30-day prime cost challenge, and if you successfully improve your prime cost by $1,000 or more compared to the same 30 days the year prior, they will pay you $1,000. Find the link in the show notes titled Restaurant Systems Pro 30-Day Prime Cost Challenge. Click that link and get signed up today. Only 10 people are going to get approved into this program. Get on it. The other thing that makes me think from your story too, I think with AI on the rise, there's going to be a lot of people from different industries losing their jobs. And I think what's hopeful is as the restaurant industry is also getting more and more complex. So there's a need for technical workers in the restaurant industry. So I think but at the same time, it's still so human. So I think that it's going to be, there's this renaissance, this something is about to go off in the restaurant industry where people are going to be losing their jobs. And all of a sudden there's going to be an influx of people looking for opportunity within the restaurant industry. And I hope that it helps create balance where there's no more like 20,000 unit operators, but there's more, 200 to 100 regional unit operators, or even like more 50 unit operators. Hell, you can make really good money with a 20 unit operation.
Absolutely.
Like, how do we spread the knowledge and create opportunity and I think there's going to be so many people rushing to the industry to be able to level that playing field.
And it's a great industry that I think, a lot of those technologists don't give it credit, just back to like being able to see the result of your work so immediately, impacting people. So I think you're right. Like a lot of folks are going to see what's possible in the industry and bring their unique skills and perspectives to a very traditional and in some ways not very sophisticated industry. And so that's the opportunity. Yeah.
It's interesting too. Like food has literally been at the core, like the pivotal, like food is always at this like pivot point for like the progress of humanity. And we forget that to this day, it's still like it has always been that way. It will always be that way. I was watching a documentary on George Washington last night, and like he was a farmer and they were farming tobacco, and like there were big taxes on that with Great Britain. And to kind of give it to the man, he started farming wheat and flour, and like that sparked a revolution. Or not like the independence of this country, like there's always food behind the scenes, like influencing what's going on.
And taxes.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So Brian, you pivot to Starbucks, you get involved in this world. You're the digital product manager for Starbucks. You're there until what, 2016? Then you go to ZX Ventures, where you're the
Anheuser-Busch InBev.
Yep. Global director, data strategy and mobile. And then AB Bev, where you're the global director of retail. That's your path before 2019, where you break off with Steve to start Service Physics. And Steve, your background, 2006, where you were with Starbucks. We kind of talked about that. What was the work that the titles I see is just district manager, implementation project manager, senior continuous improvement manager. This is all like Kaizen. This is all the stuff you were talking about before, about constant evolution, that constant growth. Then you leave Starbucks and you go to Anheuser-Busch. What's going on here? Take us to that point.
Yeah. So, and sorry for the HRE job titles there. That I could describe what I was actually doing was running the lean innovation lab that Starbucks had, which was, best way to describe it might be, looks kind of like a Starbucks store, does not have real customers like coming in off the street. Was buried in the middle of the headquarters building, and all of the cabinetry was on casters, and all the plumbing and electric came in from above on hoses. So we could configure any store type in the world that we wanted to. If the Japan team reached out and said, we have this drive-through problem, we can configure their drive-through setup and start doing problem solving. We had teams of baristas come in from the Seattle area on rotating basis a couple months at a time, and they'd spend Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with us from 10 to 3. And we would run experiments, either like very specific point Kaizen problem solving at a station, or we might like force volume through the system to help a program owner working on a product that's a year and a half away understand how it's going to need to be built to be delivered within the system of Starbucks. So went on from that into working on the management system for store managers, district managers, regional directors of Starbucks to tick and tie that all together through to the service delivery system so that it's all marching in the same direction. And then towards the end of my time at Starbucks, we packaged that into a complete operational excellence program, which enabled the organization to do better innovation and get things to market more quickly and to communicate with each store in a way that was more humane. So 5 times a year instead of 5 times a day is a good way to think about that. Brian and I worked together on a bunch of really cool projects during that time. He was on the engineering team. I was organizing the experimentation and problem solving in the lab. So good partnership around redesign of the Starbucks drive-through and sort of the late 2000s. Brian was the program owner for Mobile Order and Pay. So he had this kind of like Apollo 11 moment where he's like, yeah, I got to stick this square thing into this round thing with just the things we have here. And so we did a lot of that work in the lab, and figured out how to get to an MVP as quickly as possible, which was just really a matter of months, at a time when mobile ordering was not a thing that people knew about or thought was possible. And Howard Schultz, the CEO at the time, walked into a room and said, I want to be able to pick up my phone on the subway in Manhattan, order my coffee, come up from underground and have my coffee waiting on the handoff plane. And that problem fell to Brian to solve. So that was super exciting. And then, Brian went on to the digital ventures team and did some product work, and then went over to AB InBev's innovation arm, ZX Ventures. And then that group decided that they wanted to start building craft beer businesses around the world through brand experience. And so they wanted to open brew pubs, bars, and restaurants. And they asked him if he knew anybody at Starbucks that could lead operations.
Ooh, do I?
And so I was like, oh, it'd be cool to work with you again. It took a few months between the time I got on the ground and the time I was able to get Brian convinced enough to come from his e-commerce team over to the retail team. But then we were able to work together again. This is where we started to develop the practice of service physics, which was really inspired by a terrible book that I
the title of your company?
No, the insight that led to the company. I don't want to throw any authors under the bus, but the insight was that anything you do hits a point of diminishing returns. So you can find the minimum effective dose of sleep, exercise, nutrition, all of these things. If you can identify them, you can get a lot of value in a short amount of time. And having worked in the lean world for a while, I recognized that many organizations, and we benchmarked, not just across the restaurant industry, but also government, healthcare, education. There's a success rate of full lean transformation of like 5%. And so like 95% of the time these transformations fail. And I read this book and I was like, man, there's something in this, which is lean as a methodology is so exciting and so big that everybody wants to do everything and they try to do everything. And then the transformations are too heavy to get off the ground. But what I've noticed in my practice is there's like a handful of things that if you give them to an operator, they just lift off. And that becomes the beginning of their practice. And then they can bring in these other pieces of the practice as they learn. But not everybody needs to know everything. You need to learn what you need to learn at the moment when you have the problem that technique might apply to.
So what you're talking about right now is what comes up a lot on the show. It's I think, speaking to different people. I've had Ed Doherty on the show. He's a restaurant coach out of Philadelphia. He talks about 1 degree. What's the one thing? Who's the other woman? Her name's escaping me. Anyway, she talks about the one thing, right? Why can't I think of her name? She's been on the show like 3 times too. It's killing me. It'll come to me eventually. But the whole idea is like, just what is the one thing that you could do better than anybody else and put all of your energy into doing that one thing? 80% of the yield comes from 20% of the work. That's so right. Like, what is that like? Like, how do you Pareto principle this? What is your lane? Stay in it, be better than anybody else. That's it. And double down.
Yeah, I worked with a coach in Southern California who had a coaching practice built out around one question, which is what's stuck, right? So we're going to watch an order come in. We're going to watch an order go through all the steps in the process. And we want to identify any moment where that thing stopped being worked on. Yeah. Why?
Right.
And if you can figure out why it's stuck and why it stopped being worked on, and solve that problem and then solve it again and again and again. Eventually what you end up with is a restaurant that's just humming with continuous flow. And it's simple, but hard.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what I like to say is scale doesn't come from putting your energy out. It comes from putting your energy in, and that's into what you're already doing 1% better every day. Don't compare yourself to the other fried chicken joint. Compare yourself to you today, tomorrow.
That's right.
Her name is like at the tip of my tongue and I want to give her credit. So if it comes in, I might stop later on. Okay. You said something about the law of diminishing returns. You said the law of diminishing returns, which is basically this idea that no matter what you do, the returns on your work are going to diminish over time. Right.
Well, so everything hits a tipping point, right? So I think the way they teach us in economics class is like eating Skittles. the first Skittle's amazing, the second one's amazing, the third one's amazing,
Yeah,
but you hit a point where like suddenly it's like the
you
next
acclimate
Skittle
to that. Like this is the expectation.
Yeah, the next Skittle isn't as good as the incremental Skittle that you ate before it, and so you can find that moment where you've derived the best ROI on something, and then stop.
Yeah. So that was the connection you were saying. So the law of diminishing return ties to this idea of being very efficient with focusing on the fewest amount of things. So get more into that, because I feel like there's still in my mind a little bit of a disconnect of how those two things are tied.
Yeah, so I'll give an example of a really simple thing that we do with folks in the beginning, with partners in the beginning, that yields a lot of results. So remember, you can go on they call it like a lean journey. You can explore this methodology, exploit this methodology for your entire career and never get to all of it. But let's go back to the quote at the beginning where motion is not equal to work. There is a technique popularized in industrial engineering and lean work called the spaghetti diagram. The barriers to using this tool are really low because all you need is a piece of paper and a pencil. If you want to get really fancy, you can get one of those like multicolored Bic pens from the early 90s. And you essentially draw the layout of the space you're working in. So there's an oven here, there's a cooktop here, there's a fryer here.
Like an overhead view.
And then you put your pen or pencil to the paper where the operator's starting. And for like 3 to 5 minutes, you just trace their motion through the operation. Invariably, and I've done this hundreds of times, the operator from the organization that you're doing it with, within the first 30 seconds, will say like, why is she going over there? And you've got to stop them and say like, let's not worry about why she's going over there, because she's going over there to get something. The right question is, what's over there that shouldn't be? But we'll get to that. But we still have like 3 more minutes to be watching this, and we're going to find like 20 things that are just mislocated. And so now you've got this plate of spaghetti on your diagram. We can start to say like, how do we make this like lower carbohydrate? Let's get rid of some of these loops. And, you may be taking away 2 seconds here, 5 seconds here, but you take an end-to-end order where you did 15 seconds of motion. You serve it, 1,000 entrees with this much motion a day, 15 seconds. And that's also, you're like, oh shit, that's a significant amount of labor that I'm investing in this motion, which the customer doesn't care about and the human doesn't really want to do. And that's just like the minimum effective dose of lean might be the spaghetti diagram, because you can go be dangerous and create a lot of value for customers and make work really simple just with that one technique.
So all we need to do this is a security camera, and you as people are walking around, you're just you do like one person at a time with one color, then you find the next person, do a neck, and you just get this bowl of colors and spaghetti.
Yeah, like a heat map.
Yeah. So I guess where I'm still, the disconnect for me is this idea. Like I understand that you're eliminating inefficient things. And over time, doing less work actually compounds into doing more work, or doing less moving around.
Less waste, more work.
More efficient work is better work, right?
Yeah.
But how does that influence the law of diminishing returns? I guess this idea of your ROI over time.
Yeah, it doesn't influence the law. I'd say we put the law to work.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I could deep dive you in operational engineering practices to eliminate waste, which is just one of 7 types of waste. Motion. And so we could go deep on motion for a month, a year, your entire career, or I could just teach you a spaghetti diagram, and now you can go do that.
Right.
And you're ahead.
Got it. There's so many things going through my mind right now. It's hard to pick a direction and what we can talk about next. So I think let's just get to the point where you guys are deciding. You're both at Anheuser-Busch. You're working with these C words, and you're thinking to yourself, what's next for us? Like, how do we, like, what were you feeling in 2018? Is that when you guys started bubbling up this idea of working and starting your own business?
2018, 2019, we were on the road, right? So we were based in New York City, but actually all of our business units we were supporting, Steve was talking about the bars, restaurants, brew pubs around the world, were outside the US, right? So a lot of South America, Europe, Asia. And so we'd get on a plane and we'd have a week to make an impact on an operation, right? And that's where Steve's talking about this like minimum effective dose. How do we go into an operation and win the hearts and minds of the operators and teach them some of these basic techniques that really set them on fire for continuous improvement? And so that's really where the service physics practice was honed. right? Because we were traveling around the world. We had a week to make an impact. So Steve built this training. It's like a 90-minute, in the back room of a restaurant workshop. It was called Service Physics. And then we would take what we learned in that workshop and go out into the operation and start improving the work right away. And so we could do that in, a couple days time and already have some problem solving energy and momentum that was not there before. So that was the genesis of, man, we're going in and being really impactful in these like very short windows of time. I wonder if there's an opportunity to make the industry better. Why is this just the Anheuser-Busch InBev and the Starbucks, largest beer company in the galaxy, largest coffee company in the galaxy? Why is it only them that have access to this kind of approach to the work when the whole industry really is struggling?
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. And so we didn't know. We had a hypothesis. We went back to New York, and actually early 2019, we started just doing work for free with restaurants in New York City, just to see like, how does this translate outside of a large enterprise? And we actually found it translated really well. And actually one of our first, test clients, the general manager for that concept is now on our team, which is just a testament to the ability to really bring people along, build capability, and generate energy and enthusiasm and passion for what's possible in the industry. So we did a few of those kind of just like trial engagements where we weren't charging anybody anything. We were doing it in the morning.
Concept.
That's right. We were, in the morning before work, we would go set up cameras. At lunchtime, we'd go, recharge the cameras, and then at the end of the day, we'd pick them up and over a beer that night, be collecting the data from the video.
Yeah, when you can include drinking beers with work, it's always a good.
That's it.
It's a good sign. So really, what you guys did is you service physics yourselves. You said, what is the one thing that we can do where there's blue ocean, where no one else is doing this, and it can have a massive impact and make people's lives better. Right?
I can just hit on the reason to believe. I want to describe what the experience is like for these folks that were going through this service physics training. Have you ever had a day where you woke up thinking the world was one way, and then something happened to you during the day and you're like, the world is just this other way?
I think there's multiple realities going on at once.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there is. That is quantum physics.
That's it, right? But you're not aware.
Yeah.
And so you've got restaurant operators who have been in the industry from anywhere from months to decades, and they walk into the service physics training session thinking the world is one way, and then they've got these blinders on.
Yeah.
And then they walk out and the blinders are off and you can see it in their eyes.
Right.
They're like bright-eyed, excited, turned on, tuned in, and they're ready to just like be unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I love about the work I do. In one of the biggest struggles I had to get over as the host of this podcast, probably like 5 or 6 years in, was like, by that time, I was like, why am I more confused today than I was when I started this thing? This whole point was to get answers and to find the path, the answer, the secret. And the reality is that there is no one path. There is no one secret. It's all relative. And there's a million different paths you can take in this industry. And the cool thing about the work I do and thing I'm proud of is I get to share a lot of different perspectives and prove that there are more than one reality and more than one truth happening at once right now.
Yep.
And there's so many variables. It's a very complex system. All you can do is get all the perspectives and figure out which path that makes sense for you in your market, in your your skill set, your passion, where's my destination? Where am I starting from? Yep. Like all those variables play a role, There's an almost infinite number of paths and ways to solve problems, but there are only 7 types of waste. Only 7 types of waste?
There's only 7. It simplifies the world so much.
What are the 7 types of waste?
So there's an acronym for people who want to commit this to memory. We don't have to remember anything anymore with our smartphones. But
start with the acronym.
Tim Wood.
Okay. Like
somebody's name, okay. Tim Wood. So transportation is the T. It just means stuff moving around. I is inventory. So too much or too little product or parts in any one place in the operation. The M is motion. Again, motion is not equal to work. So unnecessary movement of people or machines. You might notice that motion and transportation are similar because they're both about things moving, but yep. Motion is about people and machines, and transportation is about the stuff, usually inventory.
Supply chain.
Yep. What's interesting to think about supply chain as there's the whole supply chain to get stuff into a restaurant, and now you're in the 4 walls. There's actually a really fascinating supply chain that happens from when stuff comes in to when stuff goes out.
Yeah. Stephanie Robinson did a really cool workshop on like how to organize and set up your business. So mood flows food flows in a single direction from the back door out the front door.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Including the trash.
Yeah.
It's always something we forget
So
about.
from T,
Transportation,
I,
inventory,
M,
motion,
W.
waiting. That's the whole what's stuck.
Okay.
Like people get stuck, orders get stuck, customers get stuck. Why are things stuck? Why aren't they moving? Right. And there's reasons. But there's usually a way to get things to not be stuck.
Oh.
Limit work in process,
Sorry.
synchronize with machines. There's like a whole.
I'm tempted to like just use this as a teaser and to get you back on the show to do a whole Tim Wood workshop.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That's essentially what the service physics workshop, like service physics 101 and
teaser. Look out for everybody. We're going to get into it.
It's killer.
So what's the first O?
Over processing.
Okay.
So that's just basically doing something that's redundant. And in the restaurant industry, because we've conditioned people to think that if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. When people experience the waste of waiting, they usually start over processing. So I'll clean a clean counter.
I'm just going to look busy because I don't want to get yelled at.
Look busy. Yeah.
Where's a broom? I'm just going to sweep nothing.
Another good example is if somebody hits reply all on an email to 100 people when one person needed it. You got one person that was getting work done for them and 99 people who
getting
just
distracted.
They got over processed.
Yeah.
So the next O, we usually save this one for last, but it doesn't work with the acronym to end with an O. This is the primary waste. There's some companies call it the mother of all wastes, which is overproduction. It's producing anything in excess of what the customer demands, and it looks like batches. And so you think about the restaurant industry and how often we're batching and preparing. That's all overproduction, and it's okay. Remember that in the sort of pie chart of waste versus work, there's very little sliver that's actually work, and most of it's waste. But the opportunity, like my glass is half full, so more upside when you get rid of overproduction.
Got it.
Move away from big batches.
D.
Defects. Some companies call this rework, but in the restaurant industry, we're lucky if we get the chance to rework a defect. If it's a defect and it goes out the door, it ends up on Yelp, Google.
So yeah, what's the customer feedback? What are the things people keep saying? Highlight. Okay, where's the speed bump? Like what's the triggering event that's causing this to happen over and over again?
That's right. And we have encountered over the last couple decades plenty of people. I think it's just some people's cultural or DNA background makes them process resistant. And so what we often say is like, let's just first agree that everything that's ever happened as the result of the thing that happened before. Let's just call that process. The real question is not whether or not we want process. The real question is whether or not we want control. Is this thing so important that we want to control it and put a standard process in place? Or is it okay if there's some variation and many things are?
I would love to go deeper on this with you guys. I think it'll be fun to get you back from the top. Just hit me with the words from Tim Wood.
Transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, over processing, overproduction, and defects.
Sick. Thanks for getting into that, man. So you guys decide that you want to do this one thing. You found your one thing, your core focus, an opportunity to make an impact. You launched Service Physics. You're just helping people for free to see if you have proof of concept. Really kind of get into the work that you're doing today. I mean, I don't know where we're going to end up from here, but I mean, I'm just going to go through the list of what your website says is the services you offer. So operations strategy, service design consulting, management system design, digital strategy consulting, program management consulting, and there's a sub bullet under here, which is basically Service Physics seed launch grow framework. Is that what we need to go over that could be another workshop, just throwing it out there. Custom experience consulting, and loyalty program design. So that's a lot of stuff, you guys. That doesn't sound like one thing, right? But how is that all one thing?
It's all problem solving.
Okay.
And these are the type of problems that we tend to encounter most often and have capability to support with. I might just give like an example, and then maybe Brian has a better one, but we've been working with Pete's Coffee and Tea for almost a couple of years now. And the original sort of task that they assigned us was we're going to replace the fleet of manual La Marzocco espresso machines with an automated machine. And we don't know how to assess how many machines we'll need per location based on their volume, their volume bands. And so we said, without a standard process for how to work in the machine, we can't tell you that. So we'll work to understand what the different components of that machine are. So it's a milk steamer, a grinder, and a brewer, and those things need to work together. And then we'll build a work routine to help organize and orchestrate how the human works with that machine, so we can keep that milk steamer busy, keep that grinder busy, and keep that brewer busy, so that the machine is highly utilized, so we don't have to highly utilize people, which is more expensive. And so we did that work, and then we did the analysis, and we're able to tell them that you can service the highest volume location in your entire portfolio with 1/2 of one machine.
Wow.
Which is great news, because now you've got all this free CapEx to do whatever you want with more things. And you've got a work method that's going to be easy to train, easy for leaders to see when, things are throwing people off routine, and a whole bunch of future benefits related to products that are being built, innovation that needs to happen, that now has a place to land in a standard process. So we've got to design a product in a way that works with the routine that the barista is going to be working with every day. So it's I think a good example of a lot of the first places we start in an organization, which is like point Kaizen, or like single process improvement. And then you start to realize, like, you unclog one bottleneck and it just highlights the next
compound effect. There's 2 books I started listening to on like repeat at the beginning of this year, because I did like a long look in the mirror and being like, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, and that's really just focusing on the most important things that will move your life forward. Like what is your one thing that you can focus on to move your life forward? How do you narrow your focus? And those 2 books were The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, and Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog. So like just kind of forcing you to reflect and do like this like internal inventory. And like, if I just focus on these 3 things, these 3 rocks, if we're talking EOS, to move, if I just do these 3 things that will have the biggest impact in my life, and just every day focus on it, improve the process, and like over time, like that ripples out and it compounds through everything.
What I love about what you just said there is that's actually a key part of our practice, right? Like, let's focus on something and get it done before we move on to the next thing. So let's not try to do 20 different things to grow our business. Let's focus on the most important thing today, get that thing to a place where it's delivering what it needs to for the business, and then move on to the next. And that's a lot of what we help restaurants do as well. Let's really just focus on one order or one item at a time, get that thing done, and move on to the next, so we can avoid a lot of that process waste.
Follow one course until success.
That's it. Yeah.
Focus.
And so anything that's not driving toward that result is in some cases waste, right? Like that overproduction of like, we're trying to do all these things, we're overproducing, but we're not actually delivering on a result.
Yeah. You're making me think, it's again, that acronym, follow one course till success, focus. When people are trying to systematize their business, they're so overwhelmed because there's so many things happening. Where do I start?
That's right.
Right. Well, what's the one thing that if you did this, where's 80% of your yield coming from? Where it's probably 20% of the work you're doing. So this actually comes up a lot. So Fred Langley, the CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, has been doing a bi-weekly P&L power hour, where when you are in RU network, you can show up and we'll do a screen share, and he's like, let me see your P&L. And he starts looking for like, here are the gaps, here are the holes. Like he reads P&Ls like people read, I don't know, what's something you read every day that's super easy to read?
Newspaper.
Yeah. Like it's just, he just gets it. Right. So, and one of the things that he almost has everybody do to have the biggest impact on their prime costs with cost of goods is get a descending report of the products that you use the most from your purveyor. Like, where is most of your money going? If you want to save, you're a burger shop, like you're spending most of your money on beef, right? Work on fine tuning that system, and that's going to have the biggest impact on your bottom line. And then what's the second line on? French fries? Are you portioning? What's the third? And if you just focus on usually 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of the items on your menu, right? So if you can just focus on those things, then you're going to have the biggest impact on your bottom line. And then you're going to have more resources to focus on the next thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think, just to play that out, right? Like, we're focused on beef costs. I'm going to send an email to my supplier, and now I'm going to wait for them to respond. And I'm going to go work on something else because I got time to work on something else.
Right.
But if I was laser focused on that beef cost problem, I might go into the restaurant and try to follow that beef through my operation to see where we're wasting beef, or maybe we're over portioning beef, or whatever it is. So like that's where that single focus comes in. Like, let's not just take an action and then move on to some other focus. Let's take an action, but then where else can we look with this problem? Because usually the insights come after deep study. There's some surface level things. It's like, let me go squeeze my purveyor, right? I'm going to go squeeze them on price, but then there's probably a lot of controllable process opportunity as well. And that's where it gets harder, is to like look inside for those opportunities versus try to shift the world around you.
I think it's a pretty common mistake, and I think you guys have been dancing around this, but the work can only begin after the problem is really clear, right? And costs are not problems. Costs aren't they're not cause. They're caused by, right? They're caused by something else that's happening. And so you've got to go to where the work is happening to understand what's driving that cost, unless it's the vendor just like mischarging or something like that. But our point of view is it's better to form a long-term partnership with a vendor and treat them well anyway, instead of squeezing them. There's plenty of low-hanging fruit in-house for us to help with on the cost side.
Yeah. So what are the key variables in order to do the work you do, right? Like, what are the things that if you come to a company and they want to work with you, like what are we know we're focusing on like, we've kind of got into like what service physics is and if you're one thing and finding where the opportunity is, but like what things do you need in order to do your job for people? Like where, like, I don't know if I'm asking the question well.
I kind of want to start and say two things, because I don't think we fully addressed your question earlier about like all the stuff on our website. How does that all fit into one thing?
Yeah.
And in this conversation, we've been talking a lot about work, and we say work is, what creates value for the customer. We haven't spent much time yet talking about what it really means to the customer. What is value from the customer's perspective? And so if we start to look at what the customer is paying for, what they're actually valuing in the experience, whether it's the product, whether it's the aesthetics of the restaurant or the service experience with the staff, you put that together, and every business has what we call like their unique value DNA. It's like the unique value they're trying to create for the customer.
Unique selling proposition.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And that is actually similarly to the Maslow's hierarchy we've been talking about. There's some basic value you have to create for the customer. Quality is number one. You have to have a quality product. But then you move up into more sort of like emotional engagement kinds of value that you can create.
Psychographics.
Yes, exactly. And so this is where loyalty programs, as an example, would come in, because you need to deliver that rewards me value to your customer at some point in your journey. And so that if you take all of those services on our website, they usually ladder to a value that needs to get created for the customer. And then how do we think about from a business model standpoint? This is the DVF framework that's also there, Seed, Launch, Grow.
DVF is one more time.
Desirability, viability, and feasibility. And that's baked into that Seed, Launch, Grow framework that you mentioned when you were reading the website there. So desirability, do I have something the customer wants? Is it desirable from a customer standpoint? Is somebody going to be willing to pay me for this thing? Viability is, can I charge enough to make money doing it? And feasibility is where we spend a lot of our time. How can we actually design the operation to most efficiently and effectively deliver that value that the customer wants? And how do we balance the three legs of that stool? And so that all those services on the website really ladder back to that. How are we creating value for the customer, but how are we doing that in a way that drives value for the business and is something that we can repeatably, consistently deliver with our operation?
Yeah. So really what you guys are about is just improving and streamlining and finding efficiencies to do things better, more efficiently. Like that is what you do. You optimize.
Right. The headline, the way I like to describe it is like, let's figure out what the customer wants. What is the value that we're trying to create for the customer? And let's align our operation to do that and only that.
So I guess what I'm curious about today, what I would like to learn is like, what are you seeing? Like, what are the patterns you're seeing? Like in 2025, like what direction are you steering your clients? Does that make sense?
It is. It's a great question. And there's so many ways to go with that. But I think through some of those customer insights efforts that we've done, like to really uncover what is value from the customer's perspective, what we're seeing most recently, folks are making fewer restaurant trips. They're purchasing food from restaurants less. What they seem to be doing is trading up. So not to throw anybody under the bus, but when folks previously might have gone to McDonald's 3 times a week, Now they're going to go to a Panda Express once a week because it's a better perceived value for their money.
Okay. So you said what was that term you used? What is increasing value for the customer? Did I say that right? I'm trying to follow the.
What's creating value for the customer?
Okay. What's creating value for the customer? And then you said that is tied to.
So our overarching methodology really is getting clear on value from the customer's perspective. What is this experience that we're trying to create? Quality product, speed of service, some rewards me, some human connection. Let's get clear on what that is, and then let's align the operation to do that and only that, and do it really well consistently. And so that's where that's sort of our definition of efficiency, right?
Yeah, like unique selling proposition, right? So one of the things you just mentioned that Panda Express, right? The people are going there. People are going out. When the overarching value propositions or what is being perceived as values is being able to get food to people from different points, whether that's at home or pickup or delivery, like.
Yeah, I'm trying to speak a little bit to like what we see as an industry trend, right? So from our customer insights, this is the trend we're seeing from consumers. They're trading up, right? And so I think the point that I'm trying to make is like, let's get clear on what it is that's driving folks to come to you. If we're clear on that, then we can organize your operation to most efficiently deliver that. And right now, what we see is a bit of a trading up trend. And so as a business, how can you position yourself to be the trade up? What are people trading up from when they choose to come to you? And that's, again, this is just like 2025 moment in time insight. But if we can get clear on what that is, then we can deliver on it.
Okay. So what is driving people to come to you? The trading up trend, and trading up is meaning basically like leveling up, more value. And that value that people seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on is convenience, or like, I want to be able to have this delivered to me. I want to be able to pick it up. I want to be able to eat in. I want to be able to like infinite, like you're diversifying your point of contact with the customer.
Well, and again, I think it comes back to focus, right? So to your point, why are people quote unquote trading up to you? What is it that they're coming to you for? And now how can you recognize that and go big on it? Right? If you recognize that this is where the consumer trend is moving, how can you position yourself to, sort of weather whatever storm is coming by focusing on that value that people are coming to you for already?
And also differentiate. I don't think it's a one size fits all for the industry. I think you've got to know what your value DNA is as a brand, and then really lean into that and do it better than anybody else.
So for example, Pete's Coffee, right? Folks might trade up from, a McDonald's McCafe to a Pete's Coffee. And so a customer who might go to the McDonald's drive-through, I keep using McDonald's as an example. I have no problem with McDonald's, but they might go to McDonald's 3 times a week because they can sort of afford that, and it fits into their value need in the moment. When those prices go higher and all of a sudden those 3 trips are costing me, twice as much, I might take that same twice as much money and make fewer trips to a Pete's Coffee because I get a higher quality product. It might not be as convenient and it might not be as routine, but it's going to be more value for me as a reward for my hard-earned money.
Got it.
As an example.
Restaurant owners, what if I told you there was a way to lower your prime cost by $1,000 month over month and get paid $1,000? That sounds like a deal too good to be true, but that's exactly the deal that Restaurant Systems Pro is offering 10 of my lucky listeners. So why are they doing this? Because they consistently help their clients get between 15 and 25% profit in their business. And when they approach new clients and say, I can do the same thing for you, they get met with a lot of resistance. And because it sounds too good to be true, most restaurants think if you do between 5 and 10%, you're doing good. So to hit 15 or 25%, like what do we have to sacrifice? What scam are you throwing at me, sir? No, thank you. But the truth is they really do help people hit these numbers. And the way they do it is by having all the most important systems that are tied to profitability fully integrated into an enterprise solution. I'm talking like accounting, inventory, scheduling, checklists, training systems, general ledger, balance sheets, costing cards. So when you have all those systems dialed in, ironclad, tied connected, fully integrated in an enterprise solution, you get data. And when you have data, you can make little tweaks here and there. And those little tweaks, you can see the fruits of your labor, the effects of your efforts. And that's how you hit 15 and 25% profit. And on top of all this, they also have support, which is unheard of in today's age. So you get all these things compounded that help you hit that 15 to 25%. And if I have your attention, keep listening. Join the Restaurant Systems Pro 30-day prime cost challenge. And if you successfully improve your prime cost by $1,000 or more compared to the same 30-day period last year, they will pay you $1,000. If you're listening on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, find the show notes and we will have a link titled Restaurant Systems Pro 30-day prime cost challenge. Click that link and get signed up today. Only 10 spots, guys. Do not wait. Get your spot, lower your prime costs by $1,000 and get paid that $1,000. They're actually calling this a reverse guarantee. Get on it.
So, what is driving people to come to you? What are they trading up for? They're trading up for a perceived value, better quality, and they're trading up for convenience. How can you get this to me? But what are the different modes that this food can be accessed?
Right. And again, it's like, I'm going to spend the same amount of money. And so if I'm going to spend the same amount of money, how do I maximize the value of that money?
Got it.
Can I just add to that too? It's fun and exciting to talk about the 2025 trends, but there are really important things that have been like always on trends that I think we have unique insight into. Like as an example, after 30 years of working in this industry, I've never met a unit level operator that thinks they're getting enough labor to run their business. And I've never met an owner that doesn't think that they're overspending or over allocating labor. And so you've got these two seeming truths right up against each other. And the fact of the matter is that they're both right and they're both wrong, because it's the way that the work is being done, the way that labor is being allocated. One of the studies that we do as a part of our like standard diagnostic package is called labor utilization, where in 5-second increments, we'll go across every teammate and mark them as actively serving a guest. So either with the guest, talking to them, taking an order, or preparing their food, or moving something from one place to another for them. So active. Idle, meaning they don't have anything to do right now. They're ready to serve a guest. Idle, it's not a time to lean, time to clean. It's like, I've got capacity to do more work. Walking between 2 points, not pacing like I'm bored. I'm actually idle and I don't know what to do, so I'm going to pace back and forth. But I'm walking from this station to that station.
Yeah, I just emptied the steak for the cheesesteak. I need to go get another one from the walk.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then the last one is tasking, which is work for future customers that aren't here right now. So that could be preparing a big batch of whatever for later, or cleaning. And so when you look across that, the 4 dimensions of utilization, an operation that is running optimally will be at about 75 to 80% active utilization during peak periods. That's ideal because then you've got 25 or so percent capacity to deal with the unexpected and additional demand. And so you want people to be working in a routine and at a consistent pace, not herky jerky and not stressed out, not in the weeds, right? But that like 80% mark is pretty
there's that bell curve of human performance.
That's right.
And like people perform better at a certain level of stress. It's better to be slightly stressed than it is to be like fat, dumb, and happy, because then you're complacent.
And starting and stopping is terrible.
Right.
It's like the worst.
But then once you get to that point of like too much stress, the productivity like drops.
And quality.
Yeah, and quality.
Yep, and safety.
So it's finding that sweet spot of like engaged, moving, like you can handle it, but not exceeding it. But like, how do you, and that's back to Pareto's principle, right?
That's it. And that 75% number is a great target. And I'll plug the Service Physics app on any of the places where you can download apps. It has a tool on there. It's free to use. You can put in the names of the servers that you're observing or descriptions of them. And then you just categorize their activity every 5 seconds as active, idle, and walk, and it'll spit out a bar chart. So I'll get to the punchline here. After collecting restaurant data and over tens of thousands of restaurants, we've only found one restaurant company that has active utilization at peak over 50%. That's the industry level gap, right? So we're talking sub 50% to a goal of 75%. If you can close that and you think about let's say it's a 50 to 75% gap, that's 25%. What's 25% of $20 an hour is $5. Somebody working 2,000 hours a year is $10,000 a year times however many workers. And suddenly you start to see there's a massive opportunity. So it's a good example of like an always on thing. that we have unique and fresh perspective on. So
do you have thoughts on creating budgets with labor based on labor hours? So like when you're coaching people and you're trying to like control your prime costs, your labor costs, are you saying here's your budget? If you're trying to hit, say, I don't know, like 25% labor, right? In order to you reverse engineer, like this is how many hours you have at your current hourly rates to hit that mark. Like, is that an approach you take? Or
when we help in the labor space, we start with how long the work takes, how many labor hours, or usually at this point, we're talking to the minutes, how many minutes of labor need to be allocated to fulfill this product mix at this demand rate, this number of transactions per however many minutes, 15, 30, whatever. And then look back. It's a little bit of a triangulation. Then you look back to see if your prime costs are in line. And if they're not, then you got to go back to the work and say, how do we make this?
So you're doing like a pro forma of labor, basically. Like this is how much time it's going to take to get the job done.
Yeah.
And then you start to say, well, is there a way we can do it in less time?
Yeah.
Is there a way we can improve efficiencies?
Most labor systems, like software that you can get on the market, there's really two families. One is what we call like the fancy calculator, which you say, this is what I want my labor budget to be. This is how much is going to be in sales. Tell me how many bodies I get. And then if it's good software, it'll distribute the bodies across the demand for the day. That's sort of a top-down approach. That is usually like, it comes with less expense and a pretty good like user interface. It's pretty easy to use, but it's not very precise. It's a little bit of a
guesswork,
blunt object. Like,
yeah.
More precise, but also more expensive and a little bit more complicated to use is activity-based labor schedule. So that starts with like, how long does each thing take to do? How often do we need to do it? And then you build the workload from the ground up, and then you allocate the bodies off to meet the demand of the work, not to meet the financial budget that your labor finance team put together for you.
Okay. And I'm assuming you prefer the latter approach.
I think it depends on your problem to solve.
Right.
If you're not a large or like, medium to large enterprise, it's going to be hard to afford.
When you say, how would you define a medium to large enterprise?
Yes.
Like what's like on the low side of medium?
I think you start to struggle after like 12 or 13 units to do things in a blunt instrument way. A lot of things change at that point because you can no longer get to every restaurant with enough frequency to help them with the problem solving and be impactful. You've got to rely a little bit more on the systems and data to manage that business. And so usually around that point is when we were building country level businesses at ZX Ventures that start, at one, and then they wouldn't say anything about needing help for like dashboarding or financial reporting for like a year until they got to about their like somewhere between 10 and 15 units. And then they would start screaming because they didn't have the visibility they needed to manage their business. And so then the question becomes, how do you start to lay the groundwork around like 8 locations to be ready for what's going to need to occur between 10 and 15? And by the time
build the house before you move in it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now that being said, Starbucks ran its entire international business on an Excel spreadsheet for a labor model for a long time. It was successful.
One of the things you're going to need lots of money, which is one of the reasons why that's like, I like to focus there's like, in my mind, there's like 4 stages. There's the like 1 to 3 unit operator is like one way to run a business. And then to get to 4 to 10, you have to there's a pivot in how you do operations. And then 10 to 20, there's like another pivot in how, or like an evolution of how you have to operate. And it's usually means you have to go out and raise money at these different points. So like go build the house before you move into it. Cause like you need certain people with really big salaries to get to that next level and like the tech stack to execute it. What are some of those technologies? So you said the blunt approach, which is what was the technical term for that? With
the fancy calculator.
The fancy calculator.
Fancy calculator.
What are some examples of fancy calculators?
I think like Hot Schedules is a fancy calculator.
7 shifts.
Yeah, 7 shifts.
Okay. And what is an example of the more the other approach, what you're calling?
Yeah, like Kronos.
Kronos. Okay, got it. What else falls in Kronos? Is that like Oracle?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, and these are really like enterprise solutions. There's starting to be some like hybridization of these approaches where they're trying to like marry and meet in the middle, but I've not seen a
What do you mean? Like, give me an example of somebody who's trying to marry in the middle.
I can't think of an example of a particular company, but people are trying to get more sophisticated about matching workload to demand based on average ticket, but it implies that you have good prime cost accounting, which if you're, fewer than 10 units, I would not imagine you've put a lot of work. It's not really the right time to solve that problem into the hand time associated with every menu item and broken it out like that, because then you've got to like take a batch that has 100 ingredients or 100 units of an ingredient that goes on 5 sandwiches, and just like backing the math into every menu item is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's interesting. I mean, so are you guys familiar with platforms like Restaurant Systems Pro and Restaurant 365?
Yes. So,
I mean, where do you fall on like, where would those technologies fall on your like spectrum of like solutions? Like, are those are not enterprise solutions in your mind?
Probably not.
Probably not. What's keeping them from being an enterprise solution?
My experience is when you reach a sort of a true scale, you're building more of those tools custom.
Okay.
So you're moving from a Restaurant 365 to something like a Power BI or a Tableau, because you have your own view of your own data that you feel is important to run your business.
No two restaurants are exactly the same.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
So, I mean, this is kind of the stuff that I really like to get into. At what point does it make sense to leverage what technology, right? So this is right around that 10 to 20 mark of like scale, of like evolution. Again, 1 to 3, 4 to 10, 10 to 20. That's when you got to, if you want to go from 10 to 20 and 20 to 50, you got to start thinking about like, what's the future look like? Start with the end in mind, and how do we reverse engineer that? You go out, raise a bunch of money, hire the who's, and have the capital to also get to do the customization to, what were those 2 companies you mentioned?
Power BI or Tableau.
Right. Where you can really create something custom for your like you have to customize it to your uniqueness to continue to compound and find more efficiencies.
Right.
Can I say something controversial?
Please. I love that shit.
Technology will not solve our problems.
Yes.
And so what I would be thinking through is, how can technology remove friction from and or automate or make simpler the good process that I've proven works to solve the problems that I have? So
say that one more time. Sorry.
So
you guys are very intelligent. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
Process first, technology second. And so one of the parts of the service visit practice is a very clear definition of operational excellence. So operational excellence is really like a 4-step process that starts by defining what perfect looks like. So we could talk about labor scheduling, since we were just talking about that. What does excellence look like for labor scheduling within our organization? I might offer we have the right people in the right place at the right time doing the right work. I can walk into an operation and know if I see that. Am I seeing excellence in scheduling right now? Do I have the right people in the right place at the right time doing the right work? Yes or no?
Is that step 1?
That's step 1. Step 2 is, and you can't skip any of these steps, by the way. That's step 1. Start with like the goal. Step 2 is, by what method can I reliably deliver excellence? That definition. What are the process steps that I would need to take in order to do that? Again, another thing you can't skip over and takes a long time. But that is the one that gets skipped over most often. Question 3 is, what tools, if any, emphasize if any, would help us make this job easier or help us detect a gap to standards so we know we're off the method. Something's gone wrong and we're not going to get to excellence, and it's like automatically detected with a tool. So I'll go through the first 3 questions again. What does excellence look like? By what method would we achieve excellence reliably, repeatably? What tools, if any, will help us make the job easier or detect a gap to standard? And then
make this job easier and detect the gap standard?
Gap to standard. So we have the standard process steps, and I need a tool to tell me that like I'm off the game.
What tool, if any, would help us make this job easier and gap the standard?
And detect a gap to standard.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, how will we train people to use the tools to work in the method to deliver excellence? And so again, define excellence, define the method, define the tools, if any, and then define the training. And so now we have people trained to use the tools to work in the method to deliver excellence. And as a leader, I can now walk into the operation and say, I've defined excellence for X, Y, or Z. I'm not seeing it. Is it a gap in the method? Is there a gap in the tool? Or is there a gap in the training? What often happens, we see this time and time again, is people detect a problem. It's usually a gap to a definition of excellence that's not well articulated, but they know they don't like it because it's messed up. It's not a great experience for the customer or the worker, or there's some problem in the P&L. And then we say, okay, what tool or what training should we do? And they skip over the method part. And then what we end up with is learning management systems full of training that don't apply to delivering excellence, or a toolbox that's full of tools that we have to sort through every time we can ever find what we need. No articulation of the method. So we keep skipping over that thing, and we keep getting frustrated because we're not delivering excellence. It's a super important order: excellence, then method, then tool, if any, then training. And that is a complete system of operational excellence.
Yeah. I had Rudy Mick on the show a bunch of times, repeat guest on the show. And one of the things that he said to me that made a profound impact, and I constantly echo it, is your job as a restaurant owner is to paint the picture of perfection for your staff. What does the job done right look like, and how do you reverse engineer it, and how do you empower your people to do it?
Love that. Kindred spirits, clear as kind. Right?
Yeah. So we got down this path because we were talking about, you said process isn't, what was the quote you said? Or, do you remember?
Process for process sake?
No, I can't. We were talking about technology, like enterprise solutions. And then we were talking about like the restaurant systems pros and the restaurant 365.
That's right. So I remember now. So technology is not going to solve your problems. Method will solve your problem. Technology is a tool.
So that all starts with what are we trying to achieve? Like what does the job done right look like? What would you say? The right people, right place, right time, doing the right work.
Yep.
Right. Define that and then reverse engineer it. And can we find technologies to be a solution? But is it going in the direction of that we're going?
That's right. I listened to a panel at the National Restaurant Association show this year, where an operator was talking about the application of artificial intelligence as a coach. And they highlighted some research that people who learn from directly in a one-on-one way with a tutor outperform people who learn in a classroom by 1 to 2 standard deviations. And we're about to enter a world where
everyone's going to have their own.
Everyone's going to have their personal coach. Now, that's not method. That's like training. And so I think what I'm really excited about with technology is the opportunity to reinforce and support good method, but it's not going to be the method. And I think it's the same with any other digital technologies that are out there. If we keep looking to that well for solutions, we end up with more SaaS fees and more fragmented solutions that don't talk to each other, and more frustration.
It's the cart ahead of the horse situation. Well, it's weird. Let me kind of talk about one of my partners, Restaurant Systems Pro, right? So the story behind Restaurant Systems Pro, David Scott Peters and Fred Langley developed like this training where they basically had an operations manual where they're like, here are, from what we've learned, the best of standard operations from like labor management, scheduling, costing, inventory, purchasing, what are all the things you have to do that have the biggest impact on your prime costs? And here are the systems in an operations manual, like execute these standard like the foundational things. Like inventory is inventory almost everywhere you go, right? Like there's a good way to do that. What are the most standard things across the board that is considered best practice that can be universally spread out? So you can go open a restaurant and say like, this is like, you can create your own systems and processes, but the likelihood as a single or 2 unit operator that you're going to be able to do it as efficiently with the technology of like a Restaurant Systems Pro is probably not going to happen, right? So could you go out and so they started with this operations manual, and that evolved into a service as a software, right? That just improved the systems and put those technologies into a service as a software. So now you can take this suite of tools and you can start as now you have an inventory process, you have a costing process, you have a budgeting process, you have a fill in the blank, you have a general ledger tied to all these things. Would you say that is putting technology ahead of method?
No, it sounds to me like they documented the method in the ops manual first, and then started to remove some of that friction through software, which I think is absolutely the right approach. The where I'd love to dig in maybe in another episode, and maybe we can be on at the same time as your partners.
I'd love to have that conversation.
But if we define excellence in labor management as the right people in the right place at the right time doing the right work, we could define excellence in inventory management as having the right product in the right place at the right time and quantity. And so what I would say is, like, once we have that definition of excellence, do the methods that we put in place and the software that supports it deliver that? Or will we go through that mini supply chain that we described inside the four walls of the restaurant and think through, like, why is this the way it is? Is this the right amount of inventory in the right place at the right time in the right quantity or not? And what can we do to keep? And it's one of the things about software and other sort of like hard technologies, or they create monuments that we have to work around. They're not flexible. So now we've set something up in this way, but hey, we found a better way to do things. Does the software support it? If the software doesn't support it, we might not be able to make that improvement. As opposed to if we built this on method with software supported, we can change the method and the software will just continue to support it, or it won't. Or we can change the software, but we don't need to do it today.
Yeah. So it's weird because, like, this is the hard question I think that restaurant owners have to answer for themselves. Like, when do I implement technology? And I think that part of the argument out there is that we're moving into an era, a time where you need technology to have a fighting chance, right? But that comes at a cost. So what is the opportunity cost? And, like, at what point do you start? Sometimes I lean in the direction of, if you're opening a restaurant and you're going out to raise $1 million to, get everything you need to be open, what is another $300 a month, $600 a month for 24 months to have your tech stack operational, like the most basic things like budgeting, costing, inventory, like all those things that are going to have the biggest impact on your prime costs. And you build your restaurant on one of those platforms that would just give you the foundational things, right? Labor management, like all that kind of stuff. Like, instead of going out and trying to build all those systems from using spreadsheets, like having a fully integrated tech stack that is tied to your general ledger, do you start from day one with that? Or do you wait until you have the cash flow to cover it? Like, am I?
Yeah, no, I totally get your question. It's a really complex question. Right. I think the answer, you might not like it, but we've got to solve one problem at a time, and we have to define problems correctly. And so this is probably a whole nother podcast episode, but a mistake we see over and over again, not just in the restaurant industry, but in industry, is people defining problems as the absence of the solution that they want to do.
People defining problems as the absence of the solution.
So, for example, what's your problem? I don't have labor management software.
Okay.
That's not the problem, actually. That's the absence of the solution that you want. What is actually the problem? Is we go back to, well, if excellence is the right people in the right place at the right time doing the right work, and I don't have that, and there's a gap, and I can get really clear about what that gap is, then I can start to do some problem solving around that before I answer the question of how can I automate this or remove friction, which might be, usually is in this day and age, software. However, by defining that problem, you will know what type of software you need and select that right. That solution.
Is that something you guys help people with, identifying the right software?
Identifying the right problem.
Well, once you identify the problem, this is another truth, right? There are no two restaurants that are exactly the same, and there are no two solutions that are exactly the same. This is one of the big reasons why I'm trying to get away from sponsors, because there's conflict of interest. If my whole livelihood is dependent on these companies that are one solution, and I start promoting their competition for that might be a better solution for your uniqueness, they don't like that, right? So I think it's really important that we have a source of information that is independent, that can look at the different scenarios where different things make sense, right? So, can you kind of get into some of the examples of how, if I'm a restaurateur and I'm trying to, here's the picture of what the job done right looks like, right? Right place, right product, right market, all that. There's a gap because you've identified the right solution for that gap. What are the most often the most common gaps you guys see? I guess we'll start there. We'll start with that question. like where you make the biggest impact, like time and time again. Like, let's just start here because we know this is going to be the biggest place we can impact your operation.
Are you talking from a technology standpoint or just generally?
I mean, from like a technology standpoint, like give me an example of where there are two solutions that are ideal for two different scenarios, or the same scenario but different like business. Does that make sense?
Our reality is today, the clients we're working with already have most of their tech stack in place. And so we're helping advise on changes to that tech stack. So it's less about, hey, we need a labor scheduling tool. And it's more like, we have this labor scheduling tool. Is it the right one? And so then we get in and we start talking to the leadership and the operators. And we're like, it turns out you don't have that definition of labor excellence yet. You haven't really gotten clear on your work methods yet. And so we can talk about software, but to Steve's point, there's sort of an order of operations. And Steve said it before, usually it's in that work method space. And so let's try to get clear on the work method, and then we can design the labor model and pick the right scheduling software based on that for where you're at in your journey. But the most often problem that we're helping with is really getting clear on the work method. What is the method by which we will deliver excellence?
If I can just go deeper on that, because an automated espresso machine, in the story I mentioned before, is a technology, right? And I'll just kind of go back to this case study to talk about how extreme this math can be. So remember, you got this big box that looks like a machine, but it's actually 3 machines. It's the milk steamer, it's the grinder, and the brewer. How you sequence those 3 pieces of equipment within that box will result in 1 beverage being made every 45 seconds in the best case scenario, or 1 beverage every 2 minutes in the worst case scenario. So that means that within a half hour, if you get the 45-second method as a part of your training, then you can make 40 beverages in 30 minutes. 1,800 divided by 45 is 40, I think. And then if you learn the 2-minute way Brian taught you here, then you can only make 15 beverages in 30 minutes. So that's the gap, 40 to 15, which means I either need 1, 2, or 3 baristas based on that work method. But that work method isn't software. It's a work routine, which is kind of like human software. But good luck getting a labor scheduling software to match your reality if you don't know if you need 1, 2, or 3 baristas on that espresso machine to meet the same demand.
Got it. So you really got to start with the end in mind and reverse engineer it.
That's right.
At the core.
Yeah, start with the end in mind and then build the method, the tool. And
got it. Are you familiar with Dr. Benjamin Hardy?
No.
The book 10X is easier than 2X, The Gap and the Gain. He also has Who Not How.
I'm going to have to get a book list from you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm stoked. I'm getting on the show in July. And his latest book is The Science of Scaling, where it really gets into the stuff I love, which is like, how does the human mind work, and what is the actual science, and I can't wait to get into it. So his book is dropping, but I think we're gonna get into it. I'm about to go audio listen to all of his books. You keep on talking about The Gap, and I haven't read that book yet, so I'm really interested in if what you're saying is really what he's talking about in that book, The Gap and the Gain.
We'll read it too, and we'll have a book club.
Yeah. We could. Hey, we could have a conversation in the network. That'd be fun. What haven't we discussed, guys? We're already at about an hour and a half of recording time. It goes by fast.
That was awesome.
Yeah, doesn't it go by real fast?
Yeah.
Thank you, Evan.
One thing I want to call out is that we've tried for a long time to crack the code on supporting smaller businesses. It's a passion point for us, and we have a product that will help, and we're just not quite clear on how to bring it to market. And so our hypothesis is this August timeframe workshop, and we'll post on our LinkedIn page, Service Physics LinkedIn page, as well as our website, that people can sign up for this workshop. But it's like anything else that we do, it's just an experiment, and we're trying to find the best way to get this information. Which, again, the work is not easy. It's hard work, but the concepts are simple. And with this minimum effective dose, if you can attend a 3-hour workshop and get some hands-on practice in doing this, you can be absolutely lethal back in your operation and create tons of capacity.
When is this happening?
This is August of 2025.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, let's try to definitely, we'll have a link so people can learn more about that in the show notes. I'm not done with you yet. I still got another 15 minutes. I'm going to go to the very end before we start to wrap things up. I am curious in terms of like, typically the format of the show is like, how'd you get here? Where are you today? What's the work you're doing today? But I love when I get to talk to people like yourself who are really plugged into like the future and like I kind of have a feeling if I ask you guys, like, where are we going? Like what things are on the horizon in terms of like the future of restaurants and just like all industry? Like what are the things that like you have your eye on? Like what excites you the most? Like what are those things? I'm curious.
Man, I got to go back to the mission. The opportunity is so big in restaurants, in service, including healthcare. I mean, just look at all of the nonsense going on in healthcare today into, all work that people are doing. And so we're just nose to the grindstone trying to transform service work. And there's so much opportunity in the current state. I'm really excited about what happens when the industry has sort of like taken that next step. We're a little bit more sophisticated. We understand the work method to a granular level. We're able to schedule our people to meet demand and deliver consistent quality. What's next? What's possible in the industry once we have that foundational sort of consistency across the industry of approaching the operation? So if we achieve our mission, what's next? What comes after that? What's possible in for humankind when the work is easier, we're being really thoughtful about it, and we're delivering consistently great customer experiences. And then that's supported by AI and all the other technology that's coming along. So the future is bright, but that future, is going to take work to get there.
I think it is really bright. It's an exciting time. And like you mentioned the word consciousness a few times too. This idea of like, we have an influence. We can dictate our future. That is like, I think that's like the one thing that all life has in common. Like all living things share this ability to influence probability. Like that's the whole like, what is the power of attraction and this idea of like, if you have a vision and like, where are we going and what can we collectively do to move towards that future together? I think what's cool is if the industry starts saying like, here's our collective vision, here's our better future as an industry. And how do we get out of our silos? How do we decentralize information and democratize knowledge? Right? Like, I think we've held ourselves back because we are out of fear of sharing information, out of the competitive nature of the industry of trying to be better than the next person at our own demise, and I think what's exciting about the future is that with the resources like what you guys are doing, what this podcast is doing, and countless other resources are doing, is we're finally sharing information. We're getting perspective, and like my hope. I mean, so what is your mission statement?
To make service work better for people.
And you mentioned the word transform a couple of times, right? So like Restaurant Unstoppable's mission is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. So I guess the question I'm curious about is like, what is a better future? What is a better industry? Paint that picture. Let me real quick. What is the right place, right time, doing what type of work? Like what is that for the collective industry, right?
I want to attempt to temper your optimism and hope. You've probably heard a million times, hope's not a strategy, right? And you gave us a history lesson earlier about how George Washington didn't want to pay taxes. I have another history lesson, which is what happens when technology outstrips operations.
What do you mean by that? When technology outstrips operations?
Yeah, so I'll use the history lesson as a bridge here. Everybody in this country knows that the U.S. Civil War was one of the bloodiest wars in our history. One of the reasons why that war was so bloody was because there were 3 major technological advances that happened right before it. One related to weaponry, one related to the sighting on warships, and another related to basically supply chain and railroads. Arguably another one related to the telegraph. So communication was disrupted as well. So you've got these 4 technological leaps. And then we went to war and we lined up in lines right across from each other, as we always did, and used these very lethal weapons to destroy ourselves.
Wasn't it like the board gun, the rifle, essentially, like more accurate than ever?
That's it.
So you just point and like you're not like it was old war, new technology,
bloodbath.
Crazy.
And so think about, actually, before I say this, I read a post on LinkedIn from a CEO of a technology company espousing that the restaurant industry is ready to lead the technological revolution that's coming.
100. I believe this. The restaurant industry is going to change the world. Like I sound like a crazy people. Like, oh, like, sorry, but go ahead.
It totally could. But let's look back at recent history and COVID. So 2020, the restaurant industry had to go from largely non-digital, and third party was there, but it wasn't what it is today. And we needed to transform as an industry in like 5 weeks, or we were out of business. We've not recovered from that, and it's been 5 years.
Right.
So, if recent history is any indication of what's coming, what's going to happen with AI, I don't believe it's going to replace method in the short term. It's going to be helpful as a coach and in augmenting some of our thinking.
It's going to be a good tasker. Like you give it a task, and like it'll just automate. It'll just do that over and over and over again.
That's it, and then it will get better over time. So there's the today future, the tomorrow future, the year from now future. But what is coming is going to be, I'm not sure how old the audience is, but we probably are sitting here today thinking like the invention of the internet was the biggest technological leap in our lifetime. No way. Like artificial intelligence will be the thing that when we're, at the end of our careers, that was the technological leap. And I don't have any indication to think that today the restaurant industry is ready for that. But if we can heed the warning from COVID, from the Civil War, and think about how do we upgrade operations at the same rate that we're upgrading technology, so that we don't end up with the bloodbath that happened in the Civil War or during COVID to restaurants that we've not recovered
from. How is the technology, in this case, the technology is the board rifle, right? That delivers a very accurate shot. You're not going to miss. What technology do you see on the horizon, AI, and how is that going to be a shot to our forehead? Like, why is that a bad thing? Like, why, like, are you saying if the technology gets too powerful and like it controls us? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And it will create problems. Can guarantee and I think, one part of our practice and our mindset is that problems are good because they create opportunity, and you can't ignore them. They're bad if you sweep them under the rug, and they are plentiful, like hundreds or thousands of problems happening in every business every day, right, all the time. The new technologies will create new problems at a faster rate. Communication will speed up, expectations of customers will speed up, and costs will increase.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. So have you guys heard of the book Power and Progress? It's written by like a Harvard professor, like of like economy. His name's like Amir. I can't remember. I'm horrible with names. I can remember titles. I'm horrible with names. Anyway, the whole argument in that book, Power and Progress, is that historically, whoever controls the technology controls everything. Controls the money, controls everything. And we're moving in this direction right now. It's a really fascinating book. It's like an anthropological approach to technology over time, and like what the repercussions of society, like how that influences society and power. So whoever controls the technology controls the power. We're moving into this future where like the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and whoever controls the technology is really the shot caller. And you saw this over the past 10 years with like the evolution of like Google and Meta, and how much power that they have with being able to influence masses, like brainwash societies, and like they control, like if 100 people are on the internet, 99% of them are either on Facebook or Meta or some Google platform. Like, the majority of our existence is controlled by those two entities. That's not a good thing. That is not good. And whoever controls the AI, which is probably going to be 3 companies, it's not going to be good. So we're kind of so short-sighted. We don't see the big picture. History repeats itself. We have to be very conscious about who, as consumers, we're giving our money and our time to.
Data.
Exactly. This is one of the reasons why I kind of push back against some of the bigger players in the restaurant space right now, like the technologies. Like, we as consumers can't all use Toast as a POS. Like, that's not good for the industry. Like, I'm not saying that Toast is a bad company, but they are clear front runner, like by far the number one and most recommended POS in the show. Like, there's some other great companies out there. Spot On's doing some really good stuff. Catalyst is doing some really cool stuff. Like, How do we just intentionally fragment the industry? When we create a competitive market, we win. You know, like what's going through your mind as I'm saying this?
A lot. I'm going to say something else controversial.
What's that?
Which is technology's definition is the application of scientific knowledge applied for practical purposes.
Damn it,
Right?
Steve. Say that again.
Technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes.
Okay.
It's nothing in there that says it's digital, hardware, software, nothing. It's the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes. Service Physics as a proper noun is a company, but what we find with almost every client is that the teams start talking about service physics the way that people talk about lean or systems thinking or any of these other methodologies. Service physics as a concept is a technology, and it's free. The knowledge is out there. The practice is a practice, so you get better over time. And it will prepare us for what's coming and maybe keep it at like arm's length as long as we can until we eventually, if ever, must succumb to one of the three companies that will control artificial intelligence. But remember, the restaurant industry, the restaurants are not e-commerce businesses. They're brick and mortar. And if all the technology went away, we could still operate it like a lemonade stand if we had to.
Right. Well, I think that's one of the big things too, back on this idea of being short-sighted. Like we're in like a complex crisis right now where things are just getting so overly complex, and you need these complexities arguably to be able to compete. Because it's no longer serving the person that walks through your front door. It's serving everyone everywhere. And you need the technologies to be able to reach these people, right? You don't have an option. Your hands are tied. But it's interesting because I think we're like in this bubble, and the bubble is the internet. And we are all literally in the bubble, and we can't see beyond the bubble. And I think we forget that at the end of the day, that bubble there could be a solar flare tomorrow, and that bubble could disappear. And we're still human beings. Mm-hmm. We've created a scenario where we're dependent on this bubble that could pop at any point. So like, how do we like become conscious of that and choose not to be in the bubble, but choose to say, oh wait, we're human beings. And like, let's reverse the human variables that we know to be true to create a better future. Right.
This is actually what I really appreciate about the service industry and restaurant operators. Restaurant operators can get shit done regardless of the barriers in front of them, right? So the internet goes down, they got their backup to being able to ring transactions. There's the resilience of this industry is unstoppable, right? Just to really hammer that home. And so that's like part of what I think service physics recognizes in the world. Like people always got to eat, and the operators in this business are like, diehard, unstoppable in their passion for delivering great customer experiences and their ability to get shit done. And so, yeah, the solar flare comes, our internet bubble bursts. I bet restaurants are probably one of the few businesses that can still go. Right?
Yeah. And like, there's always going to be that need
to
bring people together, to feed them. And I mean, the restaurant was the original internet.
Yeah.
It was where you got everything, your news, your communication, your politics, your entertainment, it's like, it was the original social platform, your dining room floor.
Yep. Question for you, Art. This bubble that we live in, our reality, is it physics or fiction?
I think it's fiction.
So the best way to navigate through the fiction is with physics.
Right.
And it's not like the thing about science is it doesn't presuppose anything. It starts with the scientific method of like observation. Let's get clear on like what's happening and develop some hypotheses about how things might be better. And if we can free ourselves from the narrative of technology as that solution fixation trap that we get into, and then defining the problem as the absence of it. Because if you define your problem as technology, you've already committed to spending the money. And another like service physics mantra is like we put our minds before our wallets. Would rather go there first. We can always go to the wallet if we need to,
right?
But there's plenty of value we can extract from just thinking through it and taking a defined and consistent problem solving approach.
I love it. This has been a lot of fun. I told you guys I'd be wrapping up at 12:30. We got a minute left. I've really enjoyed this time today. Honestly, I can't do what I do without people like you being willing to open up and to share your knowledge and to share your perspective. Before we say goodbye, who do you respect and admire in the industry? Who are some folks that in your work with doing work with restaurants, or some people that just like, whoa, like you're on a different plane. You're on the next level. Like who do I need to make an example of? Who is that for you? That's how I found you guys, just through conversation.
I know you've already interviewed Meredith Sandlin.
Yes.
And she talked about Empower Delivery. When we talk about all this technology in the industry, Empower Delivery and the team behind Cluster Truck are doing it right. So what we see a lot of times is folks coming from Silicon Valley, like you said, the big three companies, right? Meta, Google, Facebook, Amazon, whatever. And they're bringing their technology lens to a very human problem. And what I mean by that is they are used to being able to design computer code that does exactly what they want it to do. And when that mindset meets the reality of restaurant operations, it totally misses, because humans are humans and humans are going to behave the way they're going to behave. And so what I'm saying is, like, the Cluster Truck folks took the right human-centered approach. They had a goal. They wanted to create something amazing for consumers. And then they literally put their engineering office above the restaurant operation. And whenever the restaurant operators had a problem, they would like bang on the ceiling, and the engineers would come down and be like, what's the problem with the work, and how can I design the technology to support the work? So they're really doing it right. And what we oftentimes see, again, with the Silicon Valley mindset is like, I've got this technology. How do I get the operation to support my technology? Right. And so the approach of what's the work that delivers the value for the guest, and then how does the technology as a tool support that work?
Who are Cluster? What is Cluster Truck?
It's a good question.
I would describe them as the most successful ghost kitchen that has been created. And so the founders, again, they set out to build a technology company by first starting a restaurant and then building the technology to support it. But the idea was, can we lead with delivery? And so what that led to was them defining their customer as the delivery driver. And so they've optimized all value to flow to the driver, knowing that they are the person that is going to serve the end customer. So all their delivery staff is in-house, like on the payroll. They're not third party. It's a fascinating story just on the Cluster Truck restaurant side, and then the software that spun out of that with Empower Delivery is really fascinating too, and brings. What is
Empower Delivery? Is that a different company?
Yeah, so the Cluster Truck built the software, and then built a company around that software to sell to other restaurant companies.
Specifically virtual kitchens or ghost kitchens?
Yeah, and mostly I would describe their value proposition as timing. And so especially in a ghost kitchen setup where you've got such a complex menu, all these different cuisines, all these different machine cycle times, when things get fired really matters to make sure that it's all landing in the same spot, hot, just as the delivery driver is pulling up.
So who's the person behind this organization that I need to talk to? What's the name?
We're gonna have to look it up for you. There's two founders. One of them, they're based in Indianapolis. So one of them had a tech exit. So it is a tech guy who decided to get after this ghost kitchen virtual brand opportunity. We'll have to look up the name for you. But Meredith for sure was the one who introduced us to them.
She could make all the right contacts for you.
Yeah, she's past guest on the show. I love Meredith. This has been so much fun. Guys, you mentioned that you have a workshop coming up in August. What's the title of that workshop?
It's a title in progress. The working title, Service Physics 101 or something like that. But it'll essentially be an introduction to service physics thinking, methods, tools, and training, and how to improve work with excellence.
Well, I would love to help you guys get more eyes and ears on that. Maybe we can get you back in the near future to do a workshop.
Yeah.
That kind of like give like a high level version, like the 45-minute version of that.
Yeah.
To get more people to go over to you folks. And you already mentioned that you're willing to support the podcast and pay me a commission. So we'll work out those details. Thank you very much. If you guys use my links, then we will make sure you connect with these guys and get registered for their webinar. Pay attention to the calls to action at the end of today's episode. We'll do a special recording to let you know exactly what to do to get signed up for that webinar. And thank you guys so much again for taking the time to get open, to get vulnerable, to share your perspective, to share your knowledge. The future of Restaurant Unstoppable is finding people like you and sharing my platform so we can spread the knowledge and live our purpose to transform the industry, men, I should say.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in person. I think it was a huge, new experience for us, being on a podcast, doing it in person. And like you said, it felt like we were just having a conversation. It was great.
I think conversations are meant to be in person.
Uh-huh.
I think again, that we start with the end in mind, like it's about people. And I think there's so much more communication that's happening in this room right now, other than our audible voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you can't get that unless you're in person. And I think we sacrifice convenience sometimes for, or sacrifice quality for convenience.
Yep, absolutely.
So anyway,
yeah. So anyway, thanks again for coming.
My pleasure.
Should do a selfie.
Yeah. Oh, on air selfie. I love it. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. There is no question. You are unstoppable. Cheers. There's another episode wrapped up here at Restaurant Unstoppable. And if you want more, Brian and Steve, they are joining us live for a Q&A on December 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/servicephysics, one word, and we will get you the link to join us on December 9th at 2 p.m. And they're going to throw in the Service Physics app, which is an app that will help you basically identify those problematic areas and routines and help you discover operational improvements. And the Q&A is really around helping you discover these bottlenecks, and they're going to make suggestions to help you improve your operational efficiencies. Again, that is December 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/servicephysics. And if you want access to this and all future Restaurant Unstoppable Network community events, head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/live and be a part of our community.